How many Mr. Pickles will it get? Let's see if this cabinet has what it takes.
Video Game Vegas.
He's so cute.
Friends, Video Game Vegas. And this is my review of the iiRcade Space Ace 2nd Generation Classic Edition Arcade Cabinet. I base my arcade cabinet reviews on 10 categories, which you'll find detailed in the text below. For each positive in a category, or more positive than negative in a category, I'll score it a Mr. Pickle. The more Mr. Pickles it gets, of course, the better. Based upon the total score, and my overall thoughts, I'll recommend if you should get it, vet it, or in other words, put it through its paces in person before you buy, or forget it. A couple of disclaimers before I get into my review. All my product reviews are based solely upon the item or items I receive. Some may get the same product and have no issues. Some may have more issues than I did. And maybe I get no issues at all, my hope for any product. Or maybe a majority of the specific product performs or presents differently than the one I got. But when it comes down to it, what I get is what I review. I don't acquiesce to excuses like, I must have gotten a bad one, or a good one, or ruminate shipping issues if I had it shipped, though I may note something. But plainly put, I'm an advocate for good quality with a strong emphasis towards quality control. And if a company wants their product seen favorably, then they need to make this a paramount part of their philosophy and put it to action. So what every customer receives is an acceptable, if not preferred, exceptional experience every time. Some may think it unfair not to put a more significant emphasis on the law of averages, and I appreciate that opinion. But my reviews are meant to tell my experience on exactly what I got, good or bad. Second, the footage presented in my videos of Arcade Cabinet's iReviewer showcase may contain updated parts, decorations, software, or other bits and bobs not included in a standard purchase. Please make sure to check advertised listings or reach out to retailers or companies to confirm complete contents in box. Now let's get to it. It was a long road for me to purchase an iiRcade machine. When I first saw it, I admit, it really didn't appeal to me. I didn't see the benefit of owning one because it didn't look like it offered anything significantly more than what I already had. But Jong, the CEO and founder of iiRcade, and his incredibly talented team, with their consistent messaging and follow-through, showed the true value of their machine. It also mirrored one of my strongest gaming values, the ability to legitimately purchase and play classic arcade games and at a fair price. And because I was running out of space in my home arcade, it also offered a single cabinet solution with the ability to add more games without having to buy additional physical units. So is their Space Ace cabinet worth the $599 I paid for it? Let's find out. The look of the cabinet. Words simply can't convey the sheer beauty of iiRcade's Space Ace cabinet. The artwork is a pure celebration of Don Bluth's work, and I can't help but gaze at it every time I see it. Space Ace, the game, brings back so many great childhood memories, like the time me and my friends went to a junior high school dance. We weren't in the cool crowd and couldn't find anyone willing to dance, so we started walking around the school. We ended up at the cafeteria and couldn't believe our eyes when we saw an actual Space Ace machine sitting there. It turns out the school rented one for the dance. I remember all of us running up to it, only to realize too soon that we didn't have any money to play it. But wait, one of my friends found a quarter. Unfortunately, it cost 50 cents to play. We all wish we still had the $2 each of us had to spend to get into the dance. For the rest of the night, we stood around the machine, watching the attract mode in awe, dreaming of our adventures to defeat Borf and save the lovely Kimmy. Little did I know at the time, years later, iiRcade would balance the karma scales and bring me the Space Ace cabinet of my dreams. I'll bet those girls who wouldn't dance with me back in junior high are kicking themselves now. If one of them would have played their cards right, they could be playing Space Ace right now. No quarters necessary. I digress. I also love the shape of the cabinet and its bold way of showcasing its most notable asset, its speakers. Cabinet structure and assembly. Anyone who knows me knows I hate building things. I prefer things pre-built, especially my arcade cabinets, because I just want to jump straight into the action. But man, did iiRcade hit a home run with this one. Building the cabinet with its camlock system is a pure joy. Before I knew it, my iiRcade cabinet was standing there in all its glory. Hats off to iiRcade for making this an absolute pleasure to put together. And the structure of the cabinet is quite possibly the best in the biz. So sturdy and well built. And I love that it comes in a two-piece design. It makes it versatile and easier to move, something I personally appreciate. And I love the small stick-on rubber bumpers that go on the edge of the control panel. iiRcade's control panel edges are a bit sharp, unfortunately, so I'm glad they implemented a solution so people won't scratch or cut themselves on the cabinet. I do hope they look into a better design of the control panel someday, as though these bumpers feel great. They can fall off at times, as they essentially use adhesive to hold them on. Physical controls. The sticks and the buttons themselves feel great, especially the buttons. But unfortunately, and this is a preference for me, I absolutely hate square gates on joysticks. Most every machine I bought that's come with square gates, I've replaced with mostly circle gates, but have used 8-way octagonal gates on occasion as well, with cabinets that include both 4-way games and 8-way games, because it makes the 4-way games at least decently playable, while still allowing 8-way games to play as normal. With the Space Ace cabinet, I don't have the option to replace the gates, unless I want to void the warranty, which I don't. iiRcade has the best replica arcade cabinet warranty in the biz, or at least that I've seen, and clearly shows they believe in the quality of their product. In any case, if I feel I have to replace anything on a cabinet, it loses a Mr. Pickle in that category, so unfortunately, iiRcade loses one here. The joysticks are playable and get the job done, but 4-way games are awkward at times, and everything feels slightly off from that classic arcade feel. Again, the buttons are amazing though. Picture quality. I'm very happy with the 19-inch monitor that comes with the iiRcade. It does have some small hot spotting and slightly leans to a higher brightness look, even after adjusting the brightness settings, but no significant washout, and it looks great, whether playing right in front of it or standing at a distance or to the sides. I am, however, disappointed at the plexiglass monitor overlay. It was clear with no scratches when I peeled off the protective coating, but even handling it with extreme care caused some scratching upon install. At the higher price paid for an iiRcade comparative in this space, I wish it would have come included with their scratch-resistant glass overlay, which they sell separately, or somehow pre-affix the included plexiglass overlay over the monitor, because installing it manually causes scratches. Overall though, the picture quality is great. Sound. Yeah, iiRcade is a beast when it comes to sound. Before I bought an iiRcade, I thought, what a weird thing to emphasize as a selling point for a cabinet, at least to this high degree. But then I got the iiRcade, and oh boy, I understood. I'd been dealing with standard to substandard audio systems in my home arcade cabinets and forgot what it truly sounded like to be back in a commercial arcade. Simply said, iiRcade brings that feeling back. I do have a small nitpick though. Not a big thing, just a small annoyance. I wish the volume wasn't controlled with arcade buttons. They get the job done, but I'm always searching for them, even though they're labeled. Games and gameplay. The games included on this cabinet out of the box are Beach Buggy Racing, Bomb Squad, Diver Boy, Double Dragon, Dragon Master, Dragon's Lair, Fancy World, Gunbird, Maniac Square, Snowboard Championship, and Twin Brats. If you're saying to yourself, I've never heard of most of these games, you're in the same boat as I am. In fact, I only knew 3 out of the 11 games: Dragon's Lair, Double Dragon, and Gunbird. But I did find out after purchase that I actually knew a 4th one, Dragon Master. I just had forgotten its name, but had played it before on emulation. So do I feel the pack-in games make it worth owning the cabinet? Unfortunately, no. But the ability to buy and add more games through its online store does. This is because of the large lineup of quality games on offer. Yes, you do have to spend additional money to own them. Though keep in mind, you do get to try a game for 30 minutes after you buy it, refunding it if you don't like it within that time. But for those who don't have the room to fit a bunch of arcade cabinets in, or are running out of space to add more, or just want a cabinet solution they can keep adding games to, then iiRcade is a fantastic option. I can tell you right now, for me, even if iiRcade never released another game, I would personally be satisfied. I found more than enough to justify my purchase. With that, let me give you my quick take on the pack-in games. I already like the 3 games I first recognized from the list, Dragon's Lair, Gunbird, and Double Dragon. They all play great on the cabinet, and here are the others I had fun with. Diver Boy. This one really surprised me. I have so much fun playing it, and its looks and sounds are so charming. Fancy World. A cheaper looking Snow Bros clone. And though I'm not big on its art direction, it's actually fun to play. I hate those bone-pooping dogs, though. Twin Brats. A Ladybug clone with appealing graphics, animations, and silly sound effects. I would, however, recommend getting an external 4-way diamond joystick restrictor, though, because it's kind of frustrating to play with the default square gate on the iiRcade. I can only recommend one brand, because I've only bought one brand, and that's from a third-party company called Uplay Arcade, and it fits externally on the iiRcade without opening it up or voiding its warranty. Please do not confuse or associate their company name with the name of that crappy DRM software also called Uplay, created by that dastardly company Ubisoft. Look for Uplay Arcade instead. Now for the games I found just so-so. Beach Buggy Racing. An average at best kart racer. I feel kart racers live and die by their branding, with recognizable characters we know and love. If there's none of that, then the gameplay really needs to be exceptional. Unfortunately, Beach Buggy Racing has neither of these. That's not to say it's a bad game. I did have some fun with it. But it's just so generic that it's not something I think about playing when I turn on my iiRcade. And Bomb Squad. Fun for a tiny bit, but got old quick for me. And for the games I didn't care much for. Maniac Square. The worst looking, worst sounding, and worst playing game of all the pack-ins on the cabinet. Although a 4-way diamond restrictor accessory helps, this game is unintuitive at times, and just not fun to play or look at. Snowboard Championship. Kinda plays like an overly sensitive and frustrating version of one of my favorite top-down arcade racers, the Great 1000 Miles Rally, but just swapping the car graphic with a snowboarder and the streets with mountain slopes. And finally, Dragon Master. Not the worst fighting game I've ever played, but not really fun either. It plays like your typical unbalanced fighter, something akin to the first Neo Geo Fatal Fury game, only less polished. But bonus time! Something really cool iiRcade does on occasion is add a free game to their online store. As of the making of this video, there are 7 games you can download to your cabinet and keep for free. These include Looping, Thibblerin, I probably butchered that name, The Adventures of Robbie Roto, Super Tank, Saturn, Rebounce, formerly known as Jong Pong, and Power of Hex. Out of these 7 games, I can really only recommend 3 of them: Saturn, The Adventures of Robbie Roto, and Rebounce. Saturn. I can't believe this game is free. It's a loving homage to the classic arcade game Robotron, brilliantly captured for the iiRcade. When I first saw this game through videos on YouTube, I assumed the gameplay would feel exactly like Robotron. It surprisingly doesn't. Yes, it plays like a twin-stick shooter of that ilk, but something about the overly frenetic action versus the character's movement feels slightly disconnected. That's not necessarily a bad thing, just a different feel and flow to the action. And since the game is fun, it makes Saturn its own thing, separating it from its classic roots. The Adventures of Robbie Roto is classic arcade fun, with a minimal art style and great sound design. However, it is a 4-way game, and you should really look into getting a 4-way diamond restrictor to make it more enjoyable. It just doesn't play optimal on iiRcade's default square gate. Rebounce. iiRcade's take on Pong. Michael from iiRcade had always been teasing the possible launch of a mythical game called Jong Pong, affectionately named after iiRcade's illustrious leader. He finally released a version of this passion project as a work in progress, and it's now known as Rebounce. And introduced AI lets me enjoy it as a single-player experience. What's really cool is it surprisingly works well with joysticks. I've mostly played Pong-type games with paddles, spinners, and analog sliders. Many modes and gameplay types to choose from, variety I remember from back in the day on many dedicated Pong machines. Great to see a rejuvenated comeback of a classic, especially the game mode with 2 balls in play at once. Now to the other games. Looping has always been the bane of my existence. I mostly played the ColecoVision version, but did waste a quarter or 2 on the arcade machine. The control has always felt wonky to me, and I just don't find it very fun to play. Super Tank looks okay, but the tank movement, when switching directions, is a total crapshoot to whether it'll actually move in the direction intended, even with a 4-way diamond restrictor on the joystick. Sometimes I move up, and the tank decides to turn right. Sometimes I push left, and the tank decides to go up. Something just doesn't feel right here, and I'm kinda glad I never saw this one in the arcade. Though notably, the experience may be different on the original arcade machine. Thibblerin. Avoid this one. I don't want to bag on a free game, but the scrolling effect during its horizontal movement causes me a fair bit of eye strain. The art direction is also not my cup of tea. Power of Hex. The latest free game for the iiRcade should be a cautionary tale. Just because something can be free doesn't mean that it should be on the iiRcade. Yes, it's cool to get free games, but putting bad free games on the system can make it feel like a dumping ground. Power of Hex is one of those games that makes me feel, why am I playing this game when I could be playing something cooler? It's only better than Thibblerin in the fact that it doesn't cause me physical nausea. Power of Hex feels about as bare bones as it gets, and the lack of any real animation on the main character just makes the whole experience feel lifeless. It feels like so much other shovelware put on systems to pad content. And I don't want to sound overly mean, but I want this to serve as a suggestion to iiRcade to be more selective. Having said all this, however, it is very important to note that not everyone's tastes are the same. Some may really dig this title, and it's free for Pete's sake, so it can't hurt to try if curious, but it's just not for me. So taking all the games you get without spending any extra money, the pack-in games and free online store games together, I feel you get a total of 9 that are worthwhile. Again, the real value of the iiRcade is its ever-growing online game store. If that interests you, then this cabinet is a great value here. Customer support was awesome during my time with this cabinet and earns its Mr. Pickle here. Other annoyances beyond what I've already discussed? Yes, some to touch upon. First, Space Ace, the game, doesn't come with the cabinet. I get a licensing agreement may have come into play to cause this, but it's kind of weird to buy a Space Ace cabinet without the game Space Ace. That issue was easily remedied though, with a simple $14.99 purchase of Space Ace from the online game store. Next, pausing and unpausing games can sometimes produce sound issues. As of the making of this video, the issue has gotten better and doesn't happen as often as when I first got the cabinet, but from time to time, if I pause a game and then unpause it, the sound may randomly start crackling or stuttering. When this happens, it won't correct itself until I exit completely out of the game and relaunch it. Now, if the game has a save feature, not really a big deal, since I can save, exit, and relaunch it without losing anything. But if I'm playing a classic arcade game, or a game without a save feature, I either have to live with the sound issues, or exit and relaunch the game and lose any progress. Now granted, arcade cabinets back in the day didn't come with pause buttons, but as iiRcade is defined as a console, and they've added a pause feature, it shouldn't cause sound abnormalities when using it. I'm sure this will be fixed all the way at some point, as others have reported it. The next one, that thankfully only happened for a short period, was continual prompts to log in. When I first got my iiRcade, I logged in once and was done. That's the way I like it, especially when we're talking an arcade machine. Other consoles I own that require a login work the same way. One login and done. But at one point, for about 2 or 3 weeks from what I can recall, the iiRcade suddenly started asking me to log in again every time I turned it on. This is something I can't stand. Another arcade cabinet I own, a virtual pinball machine from a company called AtGames, continually makes me log in. I'm glad to announce though, since that 2 to 3 week hiccup, I haven't seen this happen again on the iiRcade. Now I get if someone changes their password or something like that, a machine should request a new login. But if I haven't changed anything on my end, the last thing I want to see when I turn on my arcade machine is a prompt to log in. The next annoyance that continues to happen, but there is a workaround for, is games purchased don't always automatically download to the cabinet. I've had to use a technique provided to me by customer support to force attempts to download again. This is done by logging into the website removing the game that won't download, going into the library section on the site to find the game and prompt it to download again. Power cycling the cabinet after this is sometimes also required. Thankfully, this method works most of the time, but it should be noted that there was a several-week period where I couldn't download any games I purchased, even using this technique. This was a larger issue that technical support thankfully patched and fixed. Still, even after the patch, from time to time, I have to use the forced download trick to get a stuck game to download. The last annoyance I want to touch on is one of the games I purchased didn't work well, a game called Thunder Zone. It took some time for iiRcade to fix the slowdown issues I was having, but they did eventually fix it. I don't like buying broken games, but out of the tons I purchased for the iiRcade, well, out of the ones I spent time with at least, Thunder Zone is the only one I found issues with. That's a pretty good track record. Though each of these annoyances by themselves aren't a deal breaker by any means, they do still add up. So in all good conscience, unfortunately, I can't award iiRcade a Mr. Pickle in this category. Is the cabinet fun? So much fun, even with the joystick's square gate deficit. I purchased so many games for the iiRcade, and I wouldn't have if I wasn't having fun. Value for price. This is easy. It's absolutely worth the $599 I paid for it. It's even worth it at the retail price of $699. Now, I didn't have to pay for shipping when I bought mine, because it was included with the sale. But with free shipping, even if I had to pay $699, the iiRcade Space Ace cabinet is well worth it. It should be noted, at the time of this video, iiRcade no longer offers this cabinet skin. It was a limited edition and unfortunately sold out. But if you can find one, new or in good condition, I can tell you it's money well spent. If you still want an iiRcade cabinet like Space Ace with another skin variant, its SKU is the 64GB storage version with Sanwa clone sticks and their standard buttons. It's a second-generation version of their Classic Edition cabinet, identified by a new light-up power button. I wish I could 100% guarantee that if you got a different skin variant of this cabinet, that it would rate the same way Space Ace does. But if you do have any concerns, please contact iiRcade with any questions. Though the ratio of out-of-box games doesn't quite hit the value for me, the ability to purchase more games, quality games I like, cinches it. iiRcade as a platform is the gift that keeps on giving, and continues to gain new features all the time. So adding up the tally of all the categories, how many Mr. Pickles does iiRcade Space Ace 2nd Generation Classic Edition Arcade Cabinet get? 8 Mr. Pickles out of 10. Get it. I feel confident recommending this cabinet. It's beautiful, it's expandable, now even beyond its games library, and it addresses one of my biggest issues: how to add more games to my arcade without having to add more machines. For those wanting to see more of this beautiful cabinet, I'm going to pay it forward and link down below to a YouTube video I've enjoyed showcasing it. And now, I think I'll have another go at Space Ace. Maybe I'll get to the end this time. Safe travels, everyone. And remember, you always have a right to your opinion. But only I have a right to mine. Until next time, stay wiggly, my friends.